I can see.
I think. There you go. We are live. Okay, let me just check one thing. Okay. Greetings, everyone. This is Yoftahe from the Boston, Massachusetts, from the Yoftahe Show. Tonight, it's a very important night for all of us. Election is coming. As we all know, every 4 years on the first Tuesday following the first Monday of November, voters heads out to the polls to elect the President of the United States. And this is our chance to be heard. And we have several guests today to discuss what's at stake. This is the race that we call, as you know, we have electoral college votes, 538, and this is the run to get to 270. And this is affecting us. This is not just any other year of elections, because everything that we're going to do is going to be questioning the decency of America, what we have been going through for the last 4 years. We need to be able to reclaim it. So we have, I'm going to introduce each of the guests. I'll let them introduce. I think if you can unmute yourself, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then we will have plenty of topics that we can hit on for tonight. Once again, please share and comment, and please do your part. If there is anything that you can get from this discussion tonight, is to make sure to exercise your vote. It's your voice. So let me start with Mayor. If you can introduce yourself a little bit about yourself, and what does this election years means to you?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. I'm honored. And a little bit about myself. I was born in Pakistan and came here at a young age with my parents. And so we're fortunate to settle into Cambridge because we were able to, win a slot in the affordable housing. And so, was able to grow up here, attended the schools, and became very civically active at a young age. And for me, really, at the end of the day, it was about how all these resources I was able to benefit from, whether it was affordable housing, Head Start, you name it. And it instilled in me this desire to give back and commit myself to public service. So then I became a lawyer. And so that's the background I bring. So as mayor, I'm in my second term on the city council, first term as mayor. And it's been a very, very interesting year, very challenging for the community, all our communities. And this election has highlighted a lot of things. I think this election is very important. There's a lot at stake. I'll go in later and kind of talk a little bit more about healthcare, the climate, environment. The list goes on. Women's rights, immigrants' rights. There's a lot at stake at this election, and I look forward to digging into those issues later. But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Mayor. For the viewers, as you can see today, I have all-women panel, and I titled it "The Women Are Speaking." So we're gonna hear what they have to say. Not only the men has been dominant in the politics area, but the women are coming, and we need to listen. So tonight, please open your ears because there's a lot of discussion we're gonna go. Arlene, let me come to you as a businesswoman. That I really appreciate what you have accomplished giving back. If you tell us a little bit about yourself and what is at stake in this election year for you.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, Adam. I was really excited when you called me. This has to be the first call that I've done of this kind, so I'm actually really honored to be here. I am Arlene Buck. I am the founder America in Florida, And I consider foundation where we focus on feeding kids. And
your connection is a little bit
and I've been doing that for the past very important for so many different reasons, but for women in particular.
Arlene, if I can come back to you, maybe you may have to change your Wi-Fi. I'll come back to you. Maybe if you just, maybe you may have to put it on the Wi-Fi and then also put it on airplane mode. Maybe is it because every time that you speak, we're losing you. Okay, while she's doing that, Crystal, let me come to you. For you, I'm going to have you on the show before.
Is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Hello?
We were losing you. Okay,
well,
go ahead.
I have no idea what's going on.
Can you hear us?
Adam, can you hear me?
No, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, there we go. Okay, did you hear anything that I was saying?
You were being interrupted so much, so if you can go over it quickly, that would be good.
Oh, okay. I was saying that I am a wife, I'm a mother, I'm an entrepreneur. My husband and I have been in the MLM industry for about 30 years now. I consider myself to be a philanthropist. We have a foundation called the Boom Foundation, and we focus on underserved children all around the world. I'm also an advocate for women. I have a foundation called Win Worldwide, and I focus on, teaching leadership principles to women who are in leadership roles, whether that is in their own business or in the home or professionally. And the second part of your question was, why is this election so important? There are so many reasons, for women in particular. I feel like this is the time for us to really stand up and come together and demonstrate sisterhood in a way that that can change the world. But the other part of that is I feel like we're in a climate that's so chaotic right now. I never before in my life have I felt ashamed in a way to be an American. But the way that we have been carrying on in this country and the amount of social discourse that we are experiencing, it's well beyond what party you belong to. I think as Americans, we're better than that. And so I'm looking forward to change and for some harmony and cooperation to be restored in our country.
Thank you, Arlene. Crystal, let me come back to you just to add on what Arlene said. This is a very important year because it's not just only about voting for a president, but it's also questioning the decency of America. What we have seen in the last 4 years has been very troubling for a lot of us. So if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and then what's at stake for you this election year.
Hello, my name is Krista Wembry, and I am from South Lake, Texas. I am an author of a children's book series called Alpha Scripts, the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s of the Bible. And my purpose of the book is to train up a child when it comes to character, Christian values, and just the fundamental basics of when you're raising a child, from their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s to the way you treat other people, the self-love that you have for yourself. And train up a child what resonates with me when it comes to voting, because that's something that my mother had always spoke to us about. And I have never missed a year of voting ever since I turned 18. And I believe that is another thing that we need to, that's something that I wrote. But with everything going on in the climate, I'm actually inspired to even talk about that, because a lot of people don't understand the importance of voting, even as an adult. My 18-year-old daughter understands more than a lot of these adults walking around. And I just really feel like this is a race for change more than any time than ever. The division is out of control.
Right.
And there's always been division.
Yeah.
But it's something about these last few years, there's no accountability with our leadership. And the change will allow us to protect our future generations. And so that's what's in stake for us, that we need to begin the road for change. And it's not going to happen overnight, but this will be the step towards the journey.
Thank you. Hannah, let me come to you. You've been very busy, you've been very vocal, so we do appreciate all the work that you have been doing. So if you can tell us, for those people who don't know you, who you are and what is at stake for you.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Hannah Joy Gebrselassie. I'm the founder of the Promote Positivity Movement, where we basically work to advance different causes and support our brothers and sisters experiencing hardships. Our goal really is to make a positive difference in this world. So whether that's protesting in the streets or providing relief or support in various ways, we do that. I also run an independent media platform, Hannah Joy TV. I used to work in the broadcast television industry and decided to go independent a couple of years ago and have been continuing to build that. So it's really, really great to be here today with everyone. And there's so much at stake with this election, you know, whether we're looking at the ongoing pandemic and how it's been handled, how many brothers and sisters we lost to this situation, or whether we're looking at women's rights, or whether we're looking at working together as a society to achieve police reform in ways that will benefit all of our communities, you know, to the points that were mentioned earlier. Accountability is on the ballot. You know, peace efforts are on the ballot. Healthcare is on the ballot, and so much more. So those are just a few of the items at stake, and of course, there's a lot more which we'll get into. And thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Tez. Let me come to you. I do appreciate you as a businesswoman and what you have been leading, and you've been talking for a long time about on this topic. So what is, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, and if you can tell us what is at stake for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for hosting this and for inviting me. So a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Ethiopia, so that makes me an immigrant, right? So I call what I call a half and half life, half my life in Ethiopia, half my life here. So I became an adult here, right? And so I also am a mother. I have two brown boys. I'm a business owner. I'm in the real estate space, very active in my local community, whether it's here or otherwise business ownership. And so if you look at those different points of my life, what's on stake is pretty much everything, right? So we can talk about immigration. We can talk about healthcare. We can talk about what I call just common sense laws that are just good for, you know, humanity, right? Even real estate is you know, being attacked in some ways, and fair housing. And we all know that public schools are funded by, you know, property taxes, and there's a lot that goes into accessibility and affordability. And so there's just a lot there to unpack. And even recently, I mean, there were comments about, you know, even international laws, right? You know, as it pertains to the dam and things like that. And so there's just a lot that is, you know,
thank you.
At stake here.
So let me come back to you, Mayor. I mean, I think from the last report that I have seen, about 61 million people have already voted. So do you see in this election year any, sometimes we talk about a lot of October surprises coming up. Do you see which direction this country might be? I know it's going to be hard to predict everything, but from what you have seen, you are the elected official in politics from all of us in here. So in the politics world, what is it that you see, and which direction do you think this election looks like is going?
You know, I think from my vantage, you know, I'm in Massachusetts. I'm in Cambridge, Massachusetts in particular. Here, I've seen people very engaged in a way that is unprecedented, and I think we're seeing that in places like Texas, for example. The people who are early voting, you know, we've created ballot, you know, box to drop off that are always full. You know, we just had an incident in Boston where actually, maybe you've seen it, but someone, you know, lit one of the boxes on fire, and you know, many you know, ballots were destroyed. So this, you know, you never know what direction things are going to go because it's such an important election. But I think so far things have been, on the safety front, things have been going well. I think on the numbers front, we are going to see an unprecedented number of people going out to vote. I think to someone's earlier point, you know, this like right to vote, in Massachusetts, it looks a little different in other places across the country where there are still laws that have been passed to make it harder for Americans, you know, particularly Black people, the elderly, students, people with disabilities, exercise their right to cast a ballot. You know, this includes, you know, cuts to early voting, voter ID laws, you know, purges of voter rolls. So there's all these still laws in place in other places in the country that are making it harder to vote, but people are still voting. It's hard to know what will happen in the election. Polls are polls, but you know, I can't really say from my standpoint what will happen. You know, I think we will see more people voting. I think, and I think it's very important. I think we're going to see more people who didn't come out in 2016 who are coming out now because of what's been mentioned. There's a lot at stake.
Okay, thank you. So let's get back to the women's right or women's voice, because you are all here. So I'm going to ask each of you the similar question. If you have to pick one topic, I know it's going to be hard to pick to differentiate from everything that we have, but I'm going to start with you, Tez, and say, if you have to pick one topic that people have to listen from your end and what has been important for you, what would it be?
You know, the first thing that is front and center for me is, you know, views on immigration, right? As an immigrant, any sort of, and it's not so much, it has to do with the basic ways in which we deal with people, right? And so whether we're talking about policing, whether we're talking about immigration, a lot of my frustration comes with how we choose to deal with people as people. And a lot of that is enabled by the environment and the policy and what's okay and what's not, right? The same set of laws, if, you know, leadership says it's okay to treat people like this, then the consequences are dire. Right, so that comes to mind, you know, as first and foremost. There's a lot of issues that to me as an immigrant is, you know, near and dear my heart.
Thank you. Arlene, if I come to you, if you have to pick, I know it's going to be difficult, like I said, to differentiate it. But personally, if there is one topic that you have to pick that is very important that you think of at this moment, what would it be?
I have to. For me, the last several months to watch African-American men and kids and children, you know, just people of color in general being mistreated, you know, by our criminal justice system. You know, I am a mother of an African-American man, and I have to say that out of the driveway, I'm concerned as to whether or not he's going to make it home. And I just feel like as an American, we all have certain inalienable rights. And as a mother, and a Black mother in particular, I don't feel that we should have to have that kind of worry and concern. You know, I feel Caucasian America doesn't experience that nowhere near the same way. And so I'm grateful during this pandemic that we had an opportunity to sit still for a moment and really focus in on that challenge that we're having in our society today. So I'd have to say, from my own personal perspective, that is the one thing that's really weighing on my heart right now.
Thank you. Christelle, let me come to you. What would be, if you have to pick one thing, like I said, there are so many topics, what would be something that's burning you and say, I need to be part and people need to listen?
The protocols for a global pandemic, how to deal with it and how to be transparent to the lives, the citizens of the country. I don't know that anyone will ever be prepared, but taking ownership and responsibility to protect hundreds of thousands of lives from surviving. That right now, in fact, as we speak, I don't even feel like it's being taken seriously. And it's one of those things that when you have the sense of feeling like you could depend on like your leader or someone you're following, and it's just like we're lost. So I think that's number one, foremost for me. There's a list for me, but that's the first one that comes to my mind is, COVID-19, and this pandemic has just gotten out of control.
Okay, thank you. And now let me ask you the same question. If you have to pick one subject or one topic, what would it be that you think like very important for you?
I will say to our wonderful panelists' points today, agree with everything said so far. It's hard to say just one thing, but one thing that is a top of mind for me is the pandemic of police brutality. We're living in a country where we have one of the most violent law enforcement cultures in the world. And, we have a lack of accountability. We have a lack of leadership. Here in Georgia, the state that I live in, we have a governor who comes out and says he unapologetically backs the blue when Georgians are dying at the hands of police brutality. And so we want accountability. We want reform. We want to create a safe space so that everyone can coexist and everyone can do their job, in a proper way. And so I think being able to have leadership that will call on banning chokeholds, that will call on the use of de-escalation tactics instead of just going straight to the gun, or the use of having more advocate training enforced in some of these schools and some of these programs for police officers. So I think having leadership that will acknowledge the problem and work with community members to develop a system that really protects everyone and that can serve everyone.
Thank you, Hannah. On what Hannah said, Mayor, if I can come back to you, so that there is no confusion, because sometimes when we talk about, there's wording that get thrown out, defund the police, but technically it's not really taking away from the police, but they're just trying to restructure the money where it's going, if there's counseling, and there is a way to address so that everything doesn't turn up to be violent as much as we see it. And for me, I don't think this violence that we have been seeing is anything new, but it just they are being recorded and we get to see them more. So the denial is a little bit less. I mean, at the end of the day, I always say, I always support the police. We need them, but we just have to have the right relationship. So what do you think as a mayor in your office, because there are a lot of at stake, what do you think? Is there a miscommunication, or is what's being missed? What do you think between, let me say, the immigrant African community or Hispanic community and when we call the blue? What is it being missed?
Well, I think the reality is that there are police who are in the system who are very racist. Just like in any profession, there are people who are, it's an institutional issue, right? In our city halls, in our offices, that's just a fact, right? And I think this movement, it is about reimagining public safety. And I think the way the city of Cambridge is looking at it is, we have a sizable police budget, and many of our police officers get called to situations where individuals are having, certain episodes, right? Mental episodes. And we are now considering ways where we have more social work. We already have social workers in our police department. Our police department has historically really been, looking at, how to reimagine public safety. But I think we have to take it a step further. And the latest budget cycle, what we did was we reallocated some of our funding to go towards hiring some of the positions that we had said we were going to delay. So we said, let's take this money and put it towards this housing position, put it towards this, because I think we are committed to reimagining it. And I think it's different in different places. Georgia versus Massachusetts. I think it's all different levels. And so it is also community-based, right? I think what was happening in Minneapolis, what's happened in so many places across the country, each place is different, but there are certain themes that exist. And so I think, I'm supportive of the movement, but it is defunding is going to look differently in different communities, because I think different communities, depending on where they are at different levels as far as whether it's hiring for diverse officers, doing the racial diversity training that's really critical. There's so much stuff that is really innovative and gets back to reimagining that I think other places across the country need to be doing.
Thank you, Mayor. Like I said, it's a very sensitive issue, but sometimes most people, when they reach out to me, the word defunding, they don't seem to understand. We think like sometimes we're trying to get rid of a whole police force. And I think sometimes maybe the word defunding by itself becomes misunderstood. And then even the president, when he's talking about all police or forces are for me, and there is nobody supporting Biden, that sent a message that is like the wrong kind of message going in. So for me, I mean, just to describe it, I mean, like I said, I always tell people, I mean, I'm going to be clear. I'm not a fan of the president. And for me, he had 4 years to prove to the world. I mean, in all these things, he has not been more responsible, more sober, more decent, more generous, or more constrained, or even more informed of what's going on in our life to be able to give us, as the leader of the free world, to give us a more informed information. And then he has not been careful with his wordings that incite a lot of violences that we see on the streets, or even what I said, more kind. And one of the word that I would like to pick on, it says, he said it, I could stand on Fifth Avenue, shoot someone and not lose any vote. So Arlene, let me come back to you and say, how are we as in America? I mean, I consider America to be one of the greatest country on earth. We may have differ on certain kind of things, but it's a beautiful place that all of us can dream and can do a lot of things in this world. So, but why do we allow, do you think, Arlene, as a mother, as an African woman, why is it America allowing, or why did we allow for someone like Trump to say all these things and still be considered Trump is just being Trump, and it's okay in this kind of, call it 21st century? You're muted.
Myself, let me see.
Okay. Yeah, you can hear you now.
Okay, can you hear me? I think it is okay. I mean, I think that he was chosen in this country because people were looking for change. They, at a time when I don't think the American people really trusted Hillary. I think he was a fresh face, and what he was saying was something that was different than what we had all heard before. So we were willing to take a chance, but it is not okay. I think even people who were supporting him at one point in time, they don't really agree with his choice of words, with his vernacular, just with his whole demeanor. And I think that that's a really big part of his issue right now. I don't even think for most of us, especially, I can speak for my own friends and my own circle, it's not even a matter of the party decisions anymore. I just think people want him out. Like we have got to take back our country, the human decency, the morality, just the kindness that used to come from the presidency. It's just a disgrace. And we are really looking bad as a country as a whole, to other countries around the world. We used to have so much respect. And I feel like the office of the presidency has been demeaned with him being there. There is just no respect for what we should be standing for as a democracy. And so I don't think that a lot of people are in agreement with that. I'm even shocked that people still want to vote for him. So I don't know if I'm answering the question correctly, but in my circle, it is absolutely not okay.
Okay. Crystal, let me come to you because we had this discussion a little bit when we talked about your book. As a Christian, you have a value, but nowadays, everything that gets thrown out, and I feel like it's hypocrisy. If you're a Christian, you cannot vote for a Democrat. But everything that he says or what he does, he doesn't have the value of a Christian for me. So as a Christian woman, if someone says to you, as a Christian, the only thing that you can do is vote for Trump or for a Republican, what kind of answer do you have?
Yeah, I don't. I separate religion and in politics. So, because you know, y'all have people talk about abortion and God does not condone, you know, and go back to reflect to the Bible. But it's, to me, I don't think it's right to pick and choose when you want to use the Bible. If you're not walking a straight line, period, then I don't want to go back and forth, because we can go all day with, you know, the unethical things that our president's done that's not Christian like, you know, and the other parties, they're not perfect, but I'm all about love. I lead with love, and I'm not the one to point the finger and say, well, you know, God doesn't, this is not in Christian. Be an example. I believe you just walk the walk as a Christian. You're not going to be perfect, but you're going to strive to be your best. And I feel like that the parties do bring a religion into the lot, and try to claim that you may not be a Christian or your values are not as strong as theirs because you may not believe. You may go for a party that's okay with abortion. That doesn't mean I'm going to get one, you know, but you know, respectfully, that's where I think we've lost sight of just respecting each other's values and our choices. It's just become so divided. It's almost, I was telling you the other day, I almost don't even want to talk about it. I was never that person that didn't want to talk about politics. You know, some people don't want to talk about what party. I'm happy to say who I am. But these days is different because it can get there can be some tension, and it's just not, it doesn't turn out to be peaceful. So yeah, I just say, you know, when it comes to religion and being Christ-like, that has nothing to do with your parties, the party that you choose to vote for.
I agree. Taz, let me come to you. And just like you mentioned earlier, I came myself from Ethiopia, and then we have seen in Africa or different places what dictatorship looks like. And one of the reasons I came to America is just to try to avoid one of those things. But everything that I see the President Trump turning into a dictator. So what do you see? What can you compare from what you have run from or what you have seen comparing him to other world leaders? What is it that you see?
Yeah, good question. Before I answer that, I'd just like to add to what Crystal just said, because that's a really huge point within our community, right? So we have a fairly conservative community when it comes to, you know, sexual orientation or, you know, things like that. And so I think part of, you know, I've been trying to encourage people to vote on values and not singular value, right? Versus party. Like I wasn't comfortable saying this party or that party when I went to vote for the primary. I'm like, why do I have to do that? Because I don't quite fit. Do you know what I mean? But, you know, whether it's abortion or whether it's, you know, same-sex marriage, the way I look at it and the way I love Crystal said I separate those, the way I rationalize it is that is there for people to choose. It is not being forced upon you. What is being forced upon you is if there's any immigration changes that happen, if the environment is not safe for Black and brown people, that you will directly be impacted by, right? And so you can separate what impacts you and your family and still uphold religious values you may have. So I would really encourage people to say, okay, if I'm not for abortion as an individual, but this person, it's not a religious post, it's a political post. Right? So we have to be able to rationalize and separate those. And I hope this clarifies something for people. Going back to your question, I was, you know, fairly young when I left. What I do remember is when there was, you know, changes of government, you know, the new government sending people home to search for stuff. And I just remember being scared, right? You know, that's kind of the memories I have. What I will say is, you know, I listened to the debate last time, and to this day, I mean, I really try to see, to understand why people think and operate a certain way and have a level of empathy for them, just so I can understand them objectively, right? So I can put the emotion aside. And what I'm seeing is, you know, there are questions, for example, I have 2 kids and, you know, there's virtual learning, and there was a question about, you know, what do you tell parents, you know, who are scared about, you know, sending their kids to school? And the answer was, the transmission rate to teachers is low. You didn't answer the question. And so to me, it's like I expect a leader to, and even some of those, videos that leaked about the Ethiopian dam, and it's like, really, like, I think, was it a Crystal that mentioned about the international, how other, countries feel about us? I mean, the US passport used to be everything. It was gold. Now, I don't know. I mean, if this is how you're dealing international negotiations across, countries and nations, I don't know what they think of us. And so I just don't see a lot of strategic, meaningful, creative solutions. It's very black and white, and it's very like, I'm going to twist your arm because I have this leverage. Well, leverage changes. Who has leverage changes. That's the thing. It's not a sustainable way to come up with solutions, right? And so I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of my view on it.
It does. Hannah, let me come to you. You've been on the road and you've been campaigning. And so, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So what is it, call it the pushback that you get from our community when it comes to this election year?
I think you see things across the board. On one end, you see people who are so energized, who are voting for the first time, who are really excited to get out there. And then, you have some people who are saying, well, is my vote really going to count? It's one person. And then, there's sort of misinformation about the Electoral College, where some people believe that their vote does not count toward the presidency. And we have to understand that in most states, your vote does count because the Electoral College votes will go to the popular vote and whoever wins that. So I think there's a lot of misinformation out there in terms of people not understanding the value and the true impact of their vote. So while we see people energized, we see people also just kind of trying to figure out, everything. And then I think some people are just saying, well, either candidate isn't cutting it. Well, look, we are grown adults. We have to make a decision. This is who we have. This is what we got. Let's go from here. And people need to understand that election day, November 3rd, and whoever gets put into office, the work doesn't stop there. This is just one step. This is not going to resolve all of these countries' problems and all of these challenges and issues. Y'all, we have to understand that as adults, one person is not going to be our savior. And so I think just, continuing to educate one another, empower one another, and make sure people know that your vote does matter. It is going to make a difference, and it's going to go beyond November 3rd and this election.
Thank you, Hannah. Mayor, let me come back to you. One of the things that the president has been saying is like, and you mentioned a little bit of a problem with someone burning the boxes. But whenever he's saying mail-in voting is not, because people are afraid and because of COVID, might not be coming out as much before, and they may be using different options this time. So what can you tell us, how is, as a mayor, the city of Cambridge prepared to accept any mail-ins or other way of to make it pretty much safe for people to vote, and the votes are going to be counted properly? You're muted. Go ahead.
So, yeah, a few things. One thing that we've had for the last, 2 weeks almost is early voting. We're letting people early vote at 3 sites. And I can't tell you how many people are posting and saying, oh, we voted. And then to the earlier point, we have ballot boxes where people don't want to put things in the mail. So you can just drop your ballot in the mail, in the ballot box, and then it's collected every day. It's locked from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. and then it's emptied out, and monitored a few times a day. And so there's one in the back of the city hall, and I've just seen so many people coming in, dropping their ballots. They're taking pictures of dropping the ballot. Like, it's, I think we want to make it accessible as possible. So the early voting has gone a long way. We've, told people about our deadlines. We've done a lot of PSAs about, really doing mail-in and early voting. The day of, we had to change a lot of our polling locations because they were in a very, they were in elderly buildings, or they were small. And so we relocated a handful of our voting locations, but we did a lot of education around that and made sure people, know about their polling sites and locations. So a lot of it education. We have, strong turnout here. Usually in Cambridge, we're about a city of 110,000. Yeah, those are just some things that we're doing that I think the early voting hasn't happened before, and it's been really.
Okay, I'm going to ask all of you same question. As a woman, and not even just as a woman, as a person, I would say actually, what is it around you? What kind of communication is happening? And if you still find some people who says I'm undecided, are they really undecided, or is it because they don't want to say I'm voting for A, B, C, D? Is there anything that you think right now between now and November 3rd that can come up for people to decide? So, and what are you doing from your part for people to go out and vote? Because one of the things that we missed really in 2016, a lot of people said, I don't like Hillary, or I preferred Bernie to be running, or some didn't even think Trump was going to win. So there was no reason to get out and vote. So everybody has to get out and vote right now so that we don't make the same mistake that we did in 2016. So personally, I am asking all of you the same question. So what kind of conversation that you're having, and what is still being missed, and what are you doing personally to make sure people understand that their vote matter? I mean, Hannah mentioned a little bit, but personally, what are you doing? I'm going to start with you, Tez, and then I'll go and circle.
Yeah. So I've been kind of going live on Facebook, or just, I have a sister who's 11 years my junior who has not voted before, right? So kind of getting, reaching out. And so I have literally like a bucket of people who don't normally vote, hopefully who still can, but I'm going to call them out in case it triggers anything for anyone. So think about people who will be turning 18 by November 3rd. Some states may actually allow registration on the day of, as I understand. Elderly people, particularly immigrants who have citizenship rights, but maybe they're not very engaged in the political scene and don't understand what's at stake, right? It's our job to tell them what is our stake and how they may be impacted. Those who have language or technology barriers, right? So if they don't understand English well, or don't know how to use the computer, or don't know how to quite fill out the ballot. Those who may have transportation issues, who maybe have disability issues, and those who moved, right? So I'm in the real estate space, so one of the things I do is make sure you vote before you leave, or make sure you register at the next location. That is part of my practice because it's important to me. Expats, those who are U.S. citizens that live in a different country, right? Make sure that your absentee ballot is there. So just giving information. I mean, a lot of people had concerns about the mail-in, right? And I said, there is websites for every state that you can go in and make sure that it's received. And some people, that's what they needed to hear in order to be comfortable with that, right? So like Mayor mentioned, some of it is just educating, empowering, even if it's the people around us, right? And really to be engaged at the local level too. It's not just presidential, right? So, that's just one, but really, how funds are allocated, our immediate life is really impacted more by the local. And, a lot of things are now virtual. So, whether you have kids and you want to attend Board of Education meetings or town council meetings, a lot of them are now virtual. You can listen while you're preparing dinner. Just be engaged, understand what's going on. And it's my experience that whether it's corporate or business community, generally speaking, assuming that we have good-hearted leaders, they welcome feedback. They welcome the community to be part of the solution, right? As long as that information is shared in a constructive manner. And so be engaged, understand, look at the agenda, take the time, attend the meetings, help someone fill out the ballot. Every step matters. That's what I was saying.
Thank you, Tez. Christelle, let me come to you. Same question. What are you doing personally, and what do you think is still being missed between now and next November 3rd?
Well, I've been using my social media platform to, keep from the registration, get registered, the deadline. Even just little quirky stuff, wearing my mask that says vote, making it look cool, putting it out there, people putting either votes, other people's vote, even congratulating my 18-year-old daughter because it was her first time. So that was a big deal. So just really putting that impression on people that it's important to me, and, who's out there, who's voted yet. Are you going to vote? When are you going to vote? And that's also been just an ongoing conversation with people that I see, everyday people. There have been a couple of people that I know that are business owners that said that they didn't like neither one and that they weren't going to vote. So that makes me cringe, because you're like a business owner. Like, can you just find some common ground or something that's in line with your beliefs? So like, I'm like, what? I just can't even. I can't. When someone, it's shocking, especially when you own a business. Can you imagine? So yeah, but for the most part, like the numbers, record-breaking numbers, most of the people that I come in contact with, friends and family, everyone's voted. They're excited. They're proud. They're showing their stickers on Instagram, and it's like a trend right now. So it's cool. Like, you don't want to be left out, and just know your worth in your vote. And here's my thing I say to people that even feel like their vote, that just like, oh, does my vote really count? Does it make a difference? Y'all, look at all these swing states. Yes, it makes a difference. Just because your state was this doesn't mean it can't. There's people are voting. So now we have states turning different colors. Your vote makes a difference no matter what you think. And so that's just proof right there that a whole lot of one people can make a difference in a state, in the color of a state. And we're seeing it happen right now. So I'm excited about that, y'all. I know that we have record-breaking early voting, and it makes me proud. There are some things I haven't been proud about being in America, but this one thing is making me proud that people are exercising their voice.
Thank you, Christelle, because we remember, I think all of us, the time Gore and Bush, what happened, and it was down to one state, and by how many votes Bush had to win. So that's definitely, every vote counts. Arlene, yes. A bigger platform, and you have been helping, like you said, in so many areas. What are you doing personally, and then what do you think can be done between now and November 3rd to get as many votes as possible?
You hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. I, much like Crystal, I have also been using my social media platform. And, to be honest with you, I have really been surprised at the number of people who are deciding to vote. I don't think I have come across anyone in my circle that has said they weren't going to vote. Now, some people are still, they're like, I really don't like either one of these candidates. So, I'm not sold out on anyone for different reasons, but I don't have anybody that, and I'm so proud of that, because I think that this is probably the first time that there has been such an overwhelming, concern to get out and cast a vote. And so I will say the thing that I am most proud of is that, as from the African American community, we have had so many people that have been doing such a phenomenal job. I follow Kerry Washington, and she has just really been on it, singing that whole "Go Vote," song. And so I'm proud of that. I'm proud to see a lot of Black women understanding that our vote counts. We can get out and make our stance on a lot of things known. So I'm actually really proud. I don't have a circle of people that don't that we're in right now. So I'm happy to say that.
Thank you. Hannah, this question is going to be redundant for you because you're on the road 24/7. This is your third meeting tonight to say get out and vote. So what do you think you can do? You've been doing it, so you can tell us what you've been doing between now and November 3rd, how important it is with whatever work that you're doing. You're muted.
So first of all, I think the use of social media is so incredibly important. And to these sisters' points, whether you have 20 followers or whether you have 20 million, you can make a difference. Somebody there is going to be touched by what you are sharing. Somebody there is going to see a deadline because of your post. Somebody there is going to see a tip or some sort of action because of you. And so never underestimate the power of your social media, regardless of how many followers you have, all right? So definitely in addition to that, we've actually been doing some in-person initiatives and everything, making sure we're socially distanced, of course. We have been able to partner with the city of Clarkston in Georgia. So shout out to the city of Clarkston. It's one of the most diverse cities in the country. A lot of our immigrant brothers and sisters live there. And so we were able to touch base with some people there to help with voter registration. We were also canvassing downtown in different areas, making sure we're reaching the Black and brown communities, because we know that our people, you know, sometimes we're not given the same resources, the same opportunities to engage and connect. And so we want to make sure they know these are the resources. This is how you do it. This is how you register. You know, we have our cell phones. We can register people on site, which has been really good. And through all of this, you know, we've literally had people come to us and say, I'm voting because of you, or I saw something on your post and we're voting, or tagging us and saying, look, we did it, or this and that. And it's really powerful to see, just knowing that your voice will make a difference. Somebody will be touched by it. And then in addition to that, we're also changing habits. All right. We are changing habits. It's not enough to vote. It's not enough to vote early. We need to be voting informed. We need to know what's on from the top to the bottom. So we're challenged body. Every election, whatever state you're in, download a sample ballot. Review that ballot from the top to the bottom. Who's all on there? Take some time to research. Take some time to review who those candidates are, because you're not just voting on a president. You're not just voting on a vice president. There's so much at stake. And in Georgia, to anyone who's from Georgia, there's a platform called branch.vote. All you got to do is type your address in, and a breakdown of your ballot will pop up. Very digestible and easy to use. So we're just encouraging people, educating our brothers and sisters, and just continuing to do the work.
Thank you, Hannah. I want to show a video to all of you, and as we're approaching the end of our show, and then I'm going to have each of you comment on that video because it touched me very heavy. Can you see it? Is it on the screen?
Yes. Yeah, I see it.
Good evening. Ella Baker, a giant of the civil rights movement, left us with this wisdom. Give people light, and they will find the way. Give people light. Those are words for our time. Just a week ago yesterday, it was the 3rd anniversary of the events in Charlottesville. Close your eyes. Remember what you saw on television. Remember seeing those neo-Nazis. Remember seeing those Klansmen coming out of the field with lit torches, veins bulging, spewing the same anti-Semitic fire heard across Europe in the 30s. Remember the violent clash that ensued between those spreading hate and those with the courage to stand against it. Remember what the president said when asked? He said there were, quote, very fine people on both sides. It was a wake-up call for us as a country. And for me, call to action.
People killing, people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. Can you practice what you preach? And would you turn the other cheek? Father, 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 help us. Send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning. Where is the love?
What's wrong with the world, mama? People living like they ain't got no mamas. I think the whole world's addicted to the drama, only attracted to things that bring the trauma. Overseas, yeah, we trying to stop terrorism, but we still got terrorists here living in the USA, the KKK. I can't believe they're still hating blacks today. Cause if you only have love for your own race, then you only leave space to discriminate. And to discriminate only generates hate. And when you hate, then your body get irate. Yeah, madness is what you demonstrate. And that's exactly how hate works and operates. Man, you gotta have love to set it straight. Take control of your mind and meditate. Let your soul gravitate to the love.
People killing, people dying, children hurt and you hear them crying. Can you practice what you preach? And would you turn the other cheek? Father, 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 help us. Send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning. Where is the love? Where is the love? The
So the question for us is simple. Are we ready? I believe we are. We must be.
We can choose a path of becoming angrier, less hopeful, more divided, a path of shadow and suspicion, or we can choose a different path and together take this chance to heal, to reform, to unite, a path of hope and light. This is a life-changing election. This will determine what America is going to look like for a long, long time.
Yes, it
Character is on the ballot. Compassion is on the ballot. Decency, science, democracy.
Yeah.
They're all on the ballot. Who we are as a nation, what we stand for, and most importantly, who we want to be. That's all on the ballot. And the choice could not be more clear.
That was great.
So when I watched this video, it touched so many parts of what I love about America. I mean, this is a democracy that we all enjoy. This is where we want to be. But are we ready? That's the kind of question that sinks into me, because we cannot be silent. We have a voice. We need to get out and vote. So I want to ask all of you how to end this program on this video if you have watched it before, and what do you think about it, and what message do you want to send? Last word, comment on the video, and then anything you want to share to the viewer. So I'm going to start, Tez, with you.
Yeah, thank you. It was quite moving, and I've seen it before, and yet each time you see it, it affects you, as if new differently. And so, one of the first things that bubbled up for me is, and I touched on this earlier, what agreements have we made with ourselves, right? And so this can go for anything. This could be, immigrants towards a certain group. This could be Black, white, women, men, whatever. Like the agreements that we operate with, that we just downloaded without challenging, right? That we just inherited from our culture, from our parents. That is the filter with which we operate in life. Right? So we never got a chance to challenge and see, do I agree with this? Does this agreement, is it aligned with my value system? Right? And that is the problem, because, when we think about, police brutality, I say, well, there's this flight and fight, right, that we know about. We are programmed to operate a certain way, and in most times it serves us well, that it lifts us out of, dangerous situations. But in others, it hurts other people, because we assume all these things about others, right? And so now, okay, well, is that something that I've challenged, that I come, and I'm in agreement with, and I've accepted, or is it just something that I just downloaded? And that is, I think there's work to be done there. That's the first thing that bubbles up for me. And, the other thing is, the idea of leadership, right? So there's some tough choices to be made, but often there could be creative solutions so we don't have to choose, we don't have to prioritize, revenue or economy at the cost of public health, for example. We can do both, but that requires leadership, that requires thought, diversity of thoughts and creativity. And so, when I see this video, that's kind of some of the things that bubble up for me.
Thank you very much, Tez. Crystal, let me come to you. What do you think of the video, and what message do you have for the viewers?
Oh, it was so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. When I see that video, I thought it's like an awakening for us, that we are better than this, that the unity that it reflected is what we really, I really believe that's what everyone wants. We're more alike than we are different. And I love when he said, you give people a light, then they will find a way. And that's what we need. We need a leader to reflect that light. That's all we need. And so he uses this word also, and I've heard him say that, decency. And that word resonates with me, because I feel that's something we've been lacking. And the speed of the leader is the speed of the pack. So you have undecency leading the pack. What are you going to get? Whole bunch of undecency itself following. And so I love that video, because like I said, it reflects where I'm going to speak this into the universe, where we're headed. That's where we're headed, y'all. That's what it's going to be. We're going to be on the path of unity and love and unity.
Thank you very much, Crystal. Decency, that's what also hit me in there. And are we ready? Arlene, let me come to you.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you hear me good now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I don't know, that video was so moving. It was actually my first time seeing it. I had never saw that before, but it was so powerful. And you know, some of the things that just brought to mind, it takes me back to my earlier comments about this country being so chaotic right now and so divided. Like some of the really tough issues and occurrences that we've had in this country, to see it all played back in one segment, it's just, I don't know, it gave me a little bit of anxiety, to be honest with you. But I am hopeful, and I will say this: I believe that there's nothing more spirited. There's the human spirit is so resilient, and you know, sometimes you have to hit a roadblock in life in order to find out what you're made of. And to be honest with you, I've seen people, you know, just come out of this so positive. You know, before, we've been in a pandemic, everybody's been locked in a house, and then we have these horrible videos to look at all day. We've got the state of our country to be concerned about. It was kind of a dismal time. But when I see that record numbers of people are out at the polls voting, you know, people are believing for the first time in a long time that they can actually make a difference. And I see that resilience. And I feel like after this election is over, we're going to get back to some normalcy in this country. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the right leadership being in place, because it's not even for me about policy. I love what Crystal said. It's just about human decency. And, you know, maybe we don't all have, we don't have all the answers. I don't even think people expect our leaders to have all of the answers. We expect them to be decent people. we expect them to care about this country and care about the decisions that we make. We expect them to care about the citizens. And so I really am looking forward to this election, because I am honestly sick of watching the news every day. And I'm ready to get out of this house. I'm ready to say bye to Corona, and I'm ready to get on with my life. So
thank you, Arlene. Hannah, to you. You may have watched this video already or not. What is your reaction to the video?
Yeah, this was my second time watching this video, and it was just as powerful. I think seeing the clips, you know, to Crystal's point about the peace and the unity, it's really special. And this is what we need, you know, this sort of energy, this sort of movement at a time like this. And I would also like to point out, so that song, that's actually one of my favorite songs. I remember when it first came out, you know, I was probably a teenager, Black Eyed Peas, and that song holds so much weight. They did switch up some of the lyrics, but the framing of it is the same, you know, and they're talking about people killing, people dying, children hurting, children dying. You know, we don't need that. We need to change the direction this country is taking. And in that video, as you saw, there were images of police officers killing men and women. There were images of police officers brutalizing and terrorizing men and women. I want to see leadership acknowledge that behavior and change that behavior. I'm not saying to eliminate law enforcement. I want to work with someone who is going to be realistic about the problems this country is facing, to not sugarcoat, to be realistic and come up with solutions, come up with a plan, be willing to work with community leaders to create safe neighborhoods, to create a space for immigrants to be welcomed, so they're no longer in cages with their little children. So there's no more hundreds of thousands of individuals losing their lives to a pandemic. So there's no more crisis. So there's no more homelessness. All of these issues, we need to see change. We need to see a leader who is going to A, acknowledge the issues that exist in this country, and B, be willing to approach them with solution-driven ideas and compassion and peace and unity, as was mentioned before. So thank you so much. This has been an honor to be here on this panel with the phenomenal guests and, of course, host. And I look forward to the final responses here.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Mayor, back to you. What is your response to the video? How did you feel watching it?
Yeah, I hadn't seen it before, so I I'm very moved, and I'm definitely going to be sharing it and rewatching. Everyone has said things very eloquently, so I think I'll just add that, seeing that video, it hits home that voting matters because our elections have consequences, and there's just too much at stake to sit this one out. And so for those who are watching, I'd just say, if you care about your community's access to healthcare, your vote matters. If you care about our country's COVID-19 response, your vote matters. If you care about our environment, and that's something we didn't touch on, our environment, the ways we're leaving our world for the next generation, our vote matters. And if you care about racial equality and making our systems more just, immigration systems, everything, your vote matters. And so for our children and ourselves, we cannot, I think, be undecided during this particular election. So there's just too much at stake. So go vote, and let's see some hope and decency back on.
You ladies
November
have been
3rd.
amazing. We touched so many points in just in an hour. I'm gonna have you say one word, and then we're gonna end the show. For me, I'm gonna predict Biden is gonna get 323 electoral votes and win the election. And then 2020 has been tough for so many years. Let's end it in a beautiful way by bringing decency back to America. So I'm going to ask you all to throw a prediction number. Tez, I'm going to come to you.
I think it's going to be really close. What do we need? 279?
270.
270? I'll be okay with 271.
Okay. Crystal.
I'm going to say 375.
There you go. Hallelujah. Arlene?
I'm going to say 300.
300. Anna? You're muted.
I'm muted.
I'm going to go ahead and say 280 going to the Biden-Harris ticket.
There you go. And Mayor?
I'm going to be real optimistic. I think I'll say
There you go.
350.
Thank you again, ladies. This has been a very powerful night. And we're going to pray for the big win. Please vote, like we said, for all of it. Share the video, get out and try to bring one person that didn't vote last time to with you. And for me, my son was for the first time was able to vote this year. So I was so powerful for me, for him to see him vote. And once again, let's bring back decency back to America. This is a love. This is a country I served. I used to be in the military. This is a country that I want to defend. So let's get out and vote. Once again, the women have spoken. I really appreciate your time. And until we see again tomorrow night, for the viewers, I'm going to be bringing again. But tomorrow night's discussion is going to be on election again, but it's going to be in Amharic. And we're going to be talking specifically what it's affecting our community. So until I see you again tomorrow night at 8 p.m., actually, sorry, 9 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, I really appreciate you all. This is Yoftahe Gabru from Boston, Massachusetts. Until we meet again, please make sure vote and vote. Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Thank you.